going to be talking about Insight Communities today, a program that Brian and I are both really proud of. So yeah, really glad that you are here. Before we dig into the details of this case study, let's do some quick but proper introductions. So Brian.
Good afternoon, everybody. Brian Dorsey. I manage the global research team at John Deere, traditional qual-quant stuff. We've got competitive intelligence, the communities we'll talk about today, some UX research on my team as well.
Awesome. Hey everyone, Jonathan Doerr, just call me John. That does mean that John Doerr is presenting with John Deere, just to make sure that didn't go over your heads. I'm an executive vice president at Reach3 Insights. I'm repping Reach3 today, and also our technology partners, Rival, which is the program that we run the community off of. So really happy to be here. All right, Brian, I'm guessing most people have heard of John Deere, but you want to spend some time maybe telling them a little bit more about the organization, some things they might not know.
Yeah. Just a couple slides here. I figure a lot of you have heard of the brand of John Deere. We're very much a global company. You see the map behind you here where all the locations are. One quick little fact about it, actually over half of our employees are outside of the United States. So the group that I represent is very much a global organization.
Awesome.
A little bit about John Deere. Anybody recognize that funny little device up there? We are an innovation company, or we hope to be an innovation company, right? Over about 200 years ago, this is the plow that John Deere invented to solve a little bit of a problem, right? And we still think of ourselves that today. So just to give you a little background on John Deere and kind of where we come from, whether it was the plow days back in the 1837 or so, to when we bought the Waterloo Boy when we had our first tractor. Fun story here, I actually have the paper that our board wrote that said if we get rid of the horse in the family farm, it will ruin farming. Didn't quite work out that way, but it's kind of a fun little artifact. And then we went through the kind of the mechanization area and then the scale farming. And now, which fitting for the presentation today, we are a technology company. We think of ourselves as a technology company. Good way to look at that is if you go to the CES show, the Consumer Electronics Show, the keynote speaker was John Deere a couple years ago. We probably had the most prominent display there. We are a tech company that happens to put tech on really large pieces of iron.
Awesome.
And then finally, just a little bit about our business. I support all these organizations up here. So large farming, if you think of, if you drive through Iowa or Nebraska, large farming, dairy farms, if you think of small ag and turf, we do that. And then if you've driven a road at some point in your life, we've probably made the road that you drive on with one of our companies called Vertkin globally. So we support all those organizations with our research.
Awesome. All right, we learned something new about John Deere today? Yes? Awesome, cool. We will be asking you questions during the Q&A. It's a reverse Q&A where we pop trivia questions at you. So, okay, awesome. John, thank you for catching us up, Brian. How about we bring this into a research realm? Want to tell everyone just a little bit about Deere's history with Insight Communities, why you're a believer in Insight Communities?
Yeah, farmers love to talk, but farmers are hard to find, right? Once you get them, they won't shut up. They'll keep talking to you, but they're really hard to find, right? And I feel for all the people doing political research because in a lot of ways, farmers are the same way. They are really hard to find. So we go way back with communities. There's a funny little date up here of 1999. That's when we created our first online panel. It was actually my day one of my internship project. So I've been around this forever. And then some, since I started at John Deere. First question, our thing was, have you heard of the internet? Do you have access to it? So that quickly went away because farmers, even in 1999, were really well connected in the businesses that they ran. So we've been around communities, panels for a long time. You saw the journey the next decade or so. We added some other geographies in our region too, which is Europe, South America. And then the last couple years, as our business has changed to technology, we have tried to evolve our panels, and that's kind of why we're here talking today.
Awesome. All right, so we caught you up through 2023. Let's quickly rewind it, though, back to 2020, when we started talking. Take us back to that point in time. What's going through your head? Why you feel like the communities might need to evolve a little bit?
I mentioned we're a tech company, right? And we tried to live that and feel like, all right, so if our consumers are becoming more tech-focused, we're a tech company, we have to evolve how we go and talk to the customers. And probably, no better example. I remember sitting at my desk, back when we were in the office, and I got a call from one of our panelists, and we've had a lot of them in person, but he called me, he's like, hey, I got a problem, can I show you something? I was like, sure, and he sent me a link, and he was live streaming his tractor cab. And he was working on his display, much like the one that's up there, the G5. And he wanted to show me how he was going through it and what problems were there. And I remember thinking, all right, why are we waiting for them to get back to their home office and do a survey with them when they live most of their days in a tractor cab? Like, let's go where they're at and do research where they exist and they want to spend their time. And quite honestly, where they have the most freedom, because once they get out of that cab, they're doing all kinds of things. So with the automation and auto track and some of that stuff, the most time they have during the day is sitting in their cab.
Awesome. So maybe just to cap that in a sentence, you really saw an opportunity to kind of move your global communities from a more traditional insight platform to something that might be a bit more next gen, meeting your customer where they're at.
Yep.
Awesome. So let's talk a little bit about something we call Community 2.0. There's 4 pillars, in my opinion, to Community 2.0, so we'll touch on each of these a little bit more. Mobile and member-first platform, getting away from things that are really reliant upon desktop, laptop, getting away from things like portals that a lot of community members don't really engage with. So going beyond lip service to mobile and truly having a mobile-first piece of tech to run our community off of. Second thing, conversational design principles. I'll tell you a lot more about this as well. Really, this just means talking to the Deere customer like the human being they are, not like a respondent. So even though we're keeping all the rigor, and we are doing surveys, and lots of surveys, we are trying to make those surveys feel more conversational, feel more natural to participate in. The combination of really 1 and 2 is what we're all about. Like, we want quant, qual, and context in one research touch point. We don't want that to have to be 3 different studies. We want to be able to do one engagement where we can get a little bit of those 3 buckets all together. And then finally, what do we do with all that? We want to think about new ways to provide deliverables, new ways to package insights, and give Brian and his team new ways to distribute insights throughout, a really modern and tech-focused enterprise. So first things first, the new platform. This is the rival platform. Mobile first. This is a bit of a blanket statement, but I think based on those percentages, we can now say that everyone has a smartphone, even farmers. So that's really important. That is really reason number 1 why we need to be mobile first, not just mobile optimized. Another thing we're doing with our community is we are actually using SMS distributions instead of email. So all of our community members are actually just a text message away from participating in their next study. The reason that's so important is there's actually a really cool study run by Wharton. This is outside the realm of research, but they actually found that consumers are more likely to be honest and transparent when on their smartphone versus when on a desktop or laptop. So the whole point of SMS is really just to facilitate someone opening that link and participating on that smartphone, as opposed to opening that link and participating on a desktop or a laptop. So that's really, really important. It's really fueled by the social media movement and how people grew up in that era and are comfortable sharing in that environment, but you actually see it outside of social media. People will on their phone be more honest than they will be on a laptop. The added benefit of SMS over email is speed. So that SMS coming through, not dealing with as much as that clutter that we have in our personal inboxes, we're actually finding that we get a lot of the participation happening immediately. So we're getting deeper responses and we're getting faster responses, which is really a key benefit. So sort of recap it, we are really just looking to replace email with SMS. We're looking to replace desktop surveys with mobile surveys. And we're ditching things that we know don't drive a lot of ROI on insight communities, like maintaining that portal, paying for that domain name, updating that portal. We're doing away with that because the portal isn't really providing any benefit. Being conversational. This is really important to me. So, I am a trained researcher. I grew up, took a lot of awesome training and had a lot of, great experience coming from a place like Ipsos. So I'm a researcher at heart. I was trained to have a lot of rigor, to be very formal with my designs, and to create some pretty sophisticated tools to get feedback. Importantly, we want to keep most of that stuff. We want to keep the rigor. We want to keep the sophistication. What we want to move a little bit away from is that overly formal, scientific-y language. So when we say be conversational, we still want to do a really robust exercise or activity, but we want to build in things like affirmations, sharebacks. We basically want the customer, the respondent, to feel like it's a two-way conversation, not a one-way conversation. That's oftentimes something as easy as think about a traditional survey. Hi, welcome to our survey. What's your age? What's your gender? Being conversational would be something like, welcome to our activity. This one today is going to take 10 minutes of your time. Let's get started. What's your age? What's your gender? Cool, let's keep going. So simple things like that is what we mean by being conversational. It's really just embedding that language that we're used to and making an otherwise really sophisticated survey vehicle feel more like a chat conversation. And then finally, because we're on the phone, we can sort of tap into the smartphone's natural capabilities. We could ask for photos, we could ask for videos, rear-facing, forward-facing to get some video selfies. We could build that in right alongside your traditional measures and try to get that type of feedback as well. Number 3, like I mentioned, this is a combination of 1 and 2. It's sort of what I call the trifecta. So if you have full featured quant, you add in stuff like photo and video. For anyone here who's used a video selfie tool, we know that the verbatims and the word count increases. It's easier to express yourself by speaking than it is by typing. So you get the bonus of seeing your customers and you actually get more out of them. And then finally, that context and that humanization. We could bring the farmer stories to life. We could see where they're at in the moment, and we could really more deeply understand their feedback when we have that type of artifact. Finally, how it comes together. We do a ton of PowerPoint, let's be honest, right, Brian? But we do see opportunities with Community 2.0 to go beyond PowerPoint. So Brian and his team have been a big adopter of some of the stuff you're seeing behind you. Video showreels, some more digital style deliverables that are a little bit more of a journalistic style to reporting. Something that's new, that's different, that's unique, providing your stakeholders or your enterprise with something that maybe they haven't seen before, maybe they wouldn't be expecting. That has gone a long way, I think, in helping people embrace the community and embrace some of the things they could learn from it. So those are the 4 pillars of Community 2.0. That's the transition Deere has made. So do you want to tell us a little bit about the communities today?
Yes, and just back on that last slide, the reporting capabilities for something that's been around for 2 decades, just a fresh paint on the deliverables has gone a long, long way. So it's been awesome. You'll see some numbers up there. I mentioned we're a global company. The panel numbers aren't huge. The community numbers aren't huge. They're purposely not huge, right? Farmers aren't everywhere, right? So we spend a lot of time trying to get the right people on the communities. So we're not trying to get just mass quantity. We're trying to get the right quality there. You see the different countries represent. The numbers up there on studies, I don't know what accuracy is. We'll do hundreds of studies a year. So like we said, we've transitioned and made this change to Reach3 and Rivals in the last year, and it's been a fun journey so far, and we expect it to keep going.
Awesome. What about what your customers think?
Yeah, the next couple slides, right? We're all researchers, right? Or a lot of us are connected to research in some way. So as we made the transition, we were a little bit curious on how they would take to it, right? So kind of behind the scenes, we've been asking like, hey, did you like what we did, right? So far, nothing but positive, right? We haven't had anybody run and scream. They're like, yeah, that was kind of fun. That was different. So all the numbers that we've done to just check ourselves from the customer side on just, hey, do you like this style? Do you prefer it? What feels better? Good on the customer side, and probably our tougher audience is our dealers, which is on the next slide. Our dealers probably the toughest research we do, right? They're really busy, large organizations. I mean, we got dealers that are billion-dollar businesses. Doing research with them is difficult. It's easier to get them. They're really not at their desk. So this type of, so we run both our customer panels and our dealer panels through this, and it has been a really good way because they're never sitting still.
Yeah. One thing I would add, if we go back a slide, and hopefully this doesn't work against me, but our surveys, our exercises aren't actually shorter, So that's just people perceiving them to be shorter because it's more of the style they're used to communicating in. So that's really cool. We're not giving up length. We're not giving up or making Brian not be able to ask all the questions he needs to ask. Just the inherent benefit of doing things this way is people actually perceive it to be shorter than it actually is.
It's also okay if we ask less questions too,
Yeah.
right? That's a good thing.
So, all right, what about studies? We've done 24, probably way more than that, old slide, but what are some things worth calling out about how you've been using this?
Yeah, and just a variety of examples up here. The one in the middle is a very traditional, like, hey, our dealers went to an event. Can we do some post-event evaluations? The first one up here is just, a very traditional project of, hey, I've got an ad hoc request to track technology. Let's go that way. The one on my left, your right, is probably the most significant and probably the main reason that drove the change. we challenged Reach3 to kind of track a number of different segments of ours on how they were buying parts throughout the different seasonalities, so whether it was harvest or planting. And we said, hey, let's go along with the journey with these customers and see what they're doing, right? See where they're shopping, see where they're buying. And the output, continuous output through that project it's made it around the company quite a few times. So that was kind of the one that really set us over.
Yeah, awesome. Okay. And then before we let everyone go, what about the future? What do you foresee coming on the communities over the next year or so?
We hope to keep evolving. I would say as data, whether it's machine data, as a machine goes through the field, right, we're streaming data at all times, just terabytes of data. We have customer data, we have USDA data. It's easier and easier and easier to get rows and columns of data. And thus our job becomes why. Why does the data say what the data says, right? And why looks a lot better in videos and stuff like this than it does in survey-based charts, right? So if I had the perfect world, I'd say, hey, let's get the data from wherever we can get it. Let's supplement that or complement that with more videos and in-the-moment stuff of, hey, tell us as you're going through this parts purchase, as you're going through this journey, what are you doing? Hey, you're out on your machine, show us what you're doing. And if we can stack that on top of data and we have less large surveys, then I think we're in a good spot.
Yeah, yeah. We found too with a lot of our partners that does help with naysayers, tough stakeholders, that when you have some of that bonus content to back up quant, it becomes a little bit more irrefutable. If you have a quant data point, that's really the thing you're projecting. It's what you could feel statistically relevant about, but then you also could back it up with something like a video or a photo that's sort of, communicating the exact same point. So there's power in that diversity, and there's power in some of these new inputs that are available to us through the phone. So with that, we appreciate you not heckling us. Hopefully that will stay the same during the Q&A. But that's all we had for you. So we appreciate your time. And yeah, I think we have a pretty good bit of time if anyone has questions for us. Thank you. I think Paula's got the mic. I saw one hand already somewhere. Yeah, do you need the mic?
You mentioned that this audience is hard to find. How do you recruit and incentivize them once you get them in there?
I'll start with the latter. We do not incent. Traditionally, there are certain activities we do incent for. If it's more complicated or time-based, for a normal activity, we have not incented to this point for 20 years with pretty good response rates. Recruiting is anything and everything, and it's probably the one area that I'm most interested in because I think recruiting is the meat and potatoes of research, right? So whether it's through our customer purchase stuff, going through our dealers, a lot of stuff recruiting, but it's a branded panel and our brand is pretty darn good. So we do have a little bit of a cheat code there, but yeah, it's not easy. And where we struggle and we need a lot of help and we got to get creative is in Europe, South America, where we're not the main brand, then it gets really challenging to recruit and you've got to go through agencies and all kind of other things to try to recruit. Much more difficult. But yeah, but if anybody has secret codes to recruiting, I'm all about that.
We've been fortunate. John Deere, ran an NFL community in a past life where they did not have to incentivize. So you have such a loyal fan base that will do just about anything for you. But I would say in the most communities we're running sweeps or points programs. We don't want that one-to-one. Participate, get this. Participate, get this. We don't want that really transactional feel to it. But there does, for most communities, tend to need to be some sort of monetary value to go alongside the intrinsic benefits of like being in this, getting insider access and knowledge and feeling you're a part of something and your voice is being heard. So a little bit of a special circumstance.
It's an ongoing conversation though. We are always evaluating. So
Yeah.
I could talk in a couple months. We may change our mind, but it's.
Just a curiosity question. Do the farmers see John Deere as equipment or do they see John Deere as helping them agriculturally with the crops and the crop health and, maybe it's usage of LiDAR and stuff like that?
A great question. We hope it's the latter, right? And we do a lot of research on the consultant network of producers and who they trust, whether it's their local banker or John Deere. We try really hard because of our dealer network to be one and the same with which is a third party, our dealers are separate, because they're such strong community members that we try to be one and the same with our dealer network to assist the customer, right? And we don't want them thinking, hey, I just go buy a product there, that it's part of all of their conversations, right? The money in agriculture, way different story, isn't in equipment. It's in all the other stuff, seed, chemicals, land, insurance. So we're just a small part of their overall operation. Yeah, but we do a lot of research around all of that stuff, but great question.
Is it possible that can y'all hear me?
Yeah,
yes, sir.
Sound great.
Is it possible that John Deere is ahead of the market technologically? First question. Secondly, are the communities giving you an overly rosy picture?
I love the last question because I've fought this forever, and we've done some research on, because I do think there's some communities that have to fight that. What my pushback on that for John Deere is that the people we talk to are running their own businesses. So I will, and data backs it up, that it is not into their value to lie to us or to just be brand advocates, because ultimately we have to build something for them to run a business, not like they're buying shoes or something else that's just a kind of a nice to have. They need John Deere for their business. So I don't think they're fluffing us with answers. To your first question, are we ahead of the game? Yeah, we hope so, a little bit, right? We hope we're pushing the technology a little bit, and some of the stuff blows my mind that we're doing on the technology. Is it for everybody? No, but somebody needs to push it a little bit, and I hope that we are on the front end of it.
I only ask that question because a mechanic was working on my John Deere bulldozer, and he mentioned that the older bulldozers, before all the electronics, sold at a much higher price on the used market than those with all of the new technology. So.
Yep, yeah, we definitely demand a pretty price premium, right? And they're becoming harder to work on, but we do think as farmers and contractors now are running a business much more per hour, per acre, per whatever, as opposed to I'm just running a family farm. So the industry has changed to where we can calculate out the value that the machines are bringing. Yeah, great question. Thank you.
Maybe while Paul is running, a quick note. I've been running communities for the past 10 years of my career. It's definitely a bit of a perpetual philosophical question, branded or debranded. Debranded, you're of course not going to have to worry about any bias. Most of the research that exists to date would say that even with branded communities, you're not going to see rosier than usual pictures. People will be honest with you if they're unhappy. They'll be honest with you if they're unhappy. It does come down into the minutia and the day-to-day of how you're running the community, but when run correctly, you really should not see any bias just because it's a branded community. Yeah.
We do both at times to check it, and most of the time when the same client comes back, we run it through the branded community because they've seen the comparable results.
Yeah. All right, Paul. Hey.
Okay, so I have a question on the technology that you have.
Sure.
You had mentioned, Brian, that you can take them while they're going through the parts purchase and ask questions. So I'm curious, how do you capture them when they are going through that purchase at a dealer?
Yeah, so it kind of comes down to the idea of that two-way street. Oftentimes, again, the studies are initiated by Deere. We program, we design them, we deploy. There are situations where the members can cue us that they're ready to do something or participate in something. So for that example, folks were notified of this stream or this study that they could participate in, and they were sort of equipped with a word that they can use that tells us they're at that moment of truth. The response then becomes the link to that qualified study, and then they're participating right then there in the moment. So that's kind of a really cool hack or capability where we don't always have to try and time the moment. That's easy to do if we're doing like a breakfast occasion study. We can sort of guess that breakfast is around 8 a.m. It's tougher to do for something you're talking about. So the ability for them to sort of raise their hand and say, I'm ready to do something or tell you something, allows us to kind of capture that moment of truth before it's too late.
And to follow up with that, Brian, are you able to get enough scale with that to like get to the parts purchase experience?
The parts one we did, yeah, there was hundreds. I mean, yeah, I can't remember the exact, but we did, yeah.
Did it take a long time?
No, we did it. I mean, we did it every month every month we did kind of track stuff. So, I mean, it was kind of an ongoing one that we asked different, because the seasonality of buying parts, whether if you're in the field or if you're prepping for a season, was different. So, no, it wasn't bad. But everybody buys parts, though. So
We've had a lot of fun over the past few years, sort of taking more historically thought of qual methods and being able to get a little bit of an unprecedented scale behind it, because we're going to them and we're meeting them where they're more naturally at. So that SMS trigger, the exercise being a little bit less annoying to participate in. I've sort of loved designing methodologies where it's like it's a shopper mission, but with 150 completes. It's a diary study with 75 completes. That's actually been really cool, that you could actually start to question what a qual base size can and should be when you sort of change the ways you engage and you go to them versus making them come to you.
the key is on our part internally getting people, our clients, to think differently, right? That they don't just need a survey, they can get stuff differently. But that's on our side to, yeah.
All right, we done with questions?
Oh,
Yeah?
there was one more here in the front.
One more? Hey, you need a mic or you want to shout?
Paula's
fast.
Never mind. So my question has to do with the development of the dialogue whenever you are having these conversations with the people taking the surveys. Is that something that you guys work in tandem to create? And then also, how do you ensure that the dialogue stays neutral to not influence? Because obviously you want it to be conversational and you want to keep it positive, but at the same time, you don't want to influence your results by not keeping it neutral. And so I was just wondering how you guys work in tandem to develop the questions and to develop the dialogue, and also how you ensure that it stays neutral.
Yeah, awesome question. It is a collaboration. So anything we're designing, he's ultimately seeing in a Word doc like you would any other questionnaire. He has a chance to sort of tone it back, tone it up. You're being too corny, Reach3. We don't want that many emojis, Reach3. So it is a collaboration. But at the outset of this, we did have in kickoff, a conversation about what do we want the tone to be. We want this community to have a persona of its own. We want it to have a feel and a familiarity to it, that the second you engage with it or get an invite for it, it's a Deere community activity. It's not just yet another research activity. So just communication at the outset of what you want your tone to be based on your audience, and then holding each other accountable. And at a certain point, when you do enough of these, 24 studies in, it just feels like it's secondhand nature, the way you're writing the questions and the answers, because you really just got a hang of how this audience wants to be communicated with.
Yeah,
Awesome.
I would
really
just second, the tone is a big part of it.
Yeah.
Just knowing your customers, what they would accept. If, I grew up on a farm, I've been around it, when it comes across, does this look like a conversation they'd have with one of their neighbors?
Yeah. You want to, right, you think about traditional stodgy research language is not very authentic. So we want to be authentic, but you definitely don't want to miss the mark. So it's a great question. Awesome. All right, hey, we got dinner tonight. Limo, Nick and Sam, Steakhouse. If you guys want to come by our booth, let us know. Thanks, everyone.